They say bravery looks like standing tall in front of an army, but tonight, mine hides behind silk and silence. The palace is quiet, but my heart isn't. Every sound feels louder, my footsteps on the marble, the rustle of my gown, the whispers of what could go wrong. Tomorrow I host a banquet, but it's not about wine or music, it's about life and death. Not just mine, but the lives of my people, the ones who don't know their fate is already being decided. I remember the decree, how it spread through the streets like wildfire. I heard it with my own ears and felt it like a sword pressed against my back. And I knew then, I couldn't just be a silent queen wearing crowns and makeup. I had to be the voice they didn't have. But now, alone in my chambers, I wonder, am I really ready? My hands look steady, but they tremble when no one's looking. I am Hadassah still, the orphan girl who was taught to trust Yahweh. I was raised to pray, not rule. And yet, somehow, he brought me here. To this night, to this moment. The golden scepter feels miles away, even though it's only across the hall. I don't know what the king will say. He hasn't called for me in weeks, and sometimes I wonder if he even remembers the woman behind the title. But I don't need to be remembered by the king, I need to be seen by my God. I close my eyes and remember the fast, the dry lips, the ache in my stomach. And how strangely, in that hunger, I felt fuller than ever before. There was something sacred about the silence. Like heaven had leaned down to listen. Like angels had paused to hold their breath with mine. 3 days, no food, no wine, no guarantees. Only faith. And the echo of Mordecai's words, who knows if you were made queen for such a time as this? Those words stay with me like perfume that never fades. Maybe I wasn't chosen because I'm strong. Maybe I was chosen because he is. I look at my reflection, but it doesn't look like me. The makeup, the jewels, they feel like someone else's armor. Underneath it all is a girl who still remembers the scent of fig trees and the sound of Hebrew prayers at dusk. I was never meant to be royalty in the eyes of men. But somehow, God crowned me with purpose. And that's heavier than any golden tiara. I can't sleep tonight, but maybe that's okay. Maybe some nights are meant to be wrestled with. Like Jacob under the stars. Like Jesus in the garden. Maybe tears are part of the preparation. I let mine fall quietly so the maids won't worry. But heaven hears every drop. And God bottles each one like treasure. I don't want to be brave tomorrow. I want to be obedient. I walk through the banquet hall alone, just once more before the morning. The table is set perfectly, almost too perfectly. It looks like a celebration, but it feels like a battlefield. Gold plates, polished goblets, fine linens, decorated silence. Everything is beautiful, but beneath the beauty is risk. I keep telling myself, this isn't manipulation, it's intercession. I'm not just trying to please the king, I'm inviting him into truth. Into justice. But how do you present justice in a room built for flattery? How do you speak truth in a world trained to bow? I think of Vashti, how she said no and lost everything. And here I am, saying yes with everything on the line. Different choices. Same courage. The cost of obedience always feels too high, until it becomes a story of deliverance. I remember when I first walked into this palace. Everything felt too big, too cold, too golden. I thought I was walking into favor, but I was really stepping into fire. I've learned things I never asked to learn. Like how to speak without saying too much. How to survive a room full of men who only see crowns and not convictions. And yet, here I am, not just surviving, but preparing to stand. They will see a queen tomorrow, but they won't know the prayers stitched into my robe. Or the scriptures tucked in the corner of my memory. I don't need to impress them, I need to move heaven. So tonight, I kneel again. In silence. Not to beg, but to surrender. The night air is still. My fingers trace the embroidered edge of my veil. Each thread reminds me of the hands who made it, women like me, women who have no idea what tomorrow holds. And I think of the Jewish mothers holding their children tonight. They don't know a banquet is being planned to save them. They only know fear. And I carry that fear in my bones. I feel it when I breathe, but I don't let it rule me. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward in spite of it. I asked God to go before me, to soften the king's heart, to make my voice echo louder than protocol. Because when God speaks through you, even a whisper can change history. I keep thinking about how small I used to feel. Like I was invisible in a world that only honored power. But God doesn't choose the loudest. He chooses the willing. I wasn't brave when I said yes to this crown. I was just available. And maybe that's all he ever asks for. Not perfection. Not prestige. Just an open heart that says, here I am. So here I am again, standing on the edge of a miracle and a meltdown. And I don't know which way tomorrow will go. But I do know who holds it. And that has to be enough. Even if my voice shakes. Even if my eyes fill with tears. I will still stand. The world thinks the crown makes me powerful. But what truly empowers me is prayer. It's not the purple robes or the throne room. It's the quiet moments when I pour out my soul to the God who sees. The same God who saw Hagar in the desert. Who met Moses in the bush. Who caught Hannah's tears before Samuel was born. That God is still near. Even in this palace. Even when I feel out of place in my own story. I light one more candle tonight. Not for light. But for remembrance. That even when the night is heavy, his presence burns quietly beside me. Mordecai's words come back to me like wind through curtains. Don't think you'll escape just because you're in the palace. He was right. Safety doesn't come from where you live, but who you trust. And I don't trust in walls or titles or pretty dresses. I trust in the God who raised me up when I had nothing. Who gave me a name in a world that tried to erase it. Hadassah still lives beneath Esther. And I will never forget where I came from. Because that's what gives meaning to where I'm going. I am not just a queen, I am a daughter of the promise. And tomorrow, I will walk into the throne room with that promise wrapped around me like armor. I asked my maid to braid my hair tight. Like Mama used to do on feast days. A reminder that even in exile, we celebrated. We clung to joy like a candle in the dark. And tomorrow, I will do the same. I will smile, I will serve, I will pour the wine. But underneath every movement is a mission. I'm not here to host, I'm here to plead. And not just with words, but with presence. The way a woman shows up when the world underestimates her. I'm not afraid of silence in the room. Because I know who speaks through it. I rehearse the moment in my mind. The way I will walk in, eyes low but heart lifted. The way I will bow just enough, not in fear, but in grace. The king will look at me, and maybe, just maybe, he'll see more than a beautiful face. Maybe he'll see a burden too sacred to ignore. I don't know how much he knows. But I know what I carry. And I know that God can speak even through kings who do not know him. He's done it before. And he can do it again. So I walk not in my own strength, but in the authority of the one who called me here. There are moments when I feel utterly alone. Like no one can possibly understand the pressure I carry. But then I remember, I am not the first woman to stand in the gap. Deborah led armies. Ruth left everything. Tamar stood for justice. And here I am, the next in a long line of women God chose in hidden places. We didn't ask for this. We just responded. And maybe that's what faith really looks like, responding. Not knowing the ending, but trusting the author. I've stopped asking God to take the fear away. Now I ask him to walk with me through it. To whisper truth when doubt gets loud. To steady my hands when I serve the wine. To fill my silence with his spirit. Because the real danger isn't being rejected. It's being silent when I was called to speak. I can't afford silence anymore. Not when lives are at stake. Not when heaven has already given me a voice. Even if I'm soft-spoken. Even if I don't know the perfect words. Obedience is louder than eloquence. I think of my people and the weight gets heavier. I think of children who may never grow up if I fail. Of mothers who will weep if I say nothing. Of fathers who will be dragged away for their heritage. And suddenly, my comfort means nothing. What good is a crown if I don't use it to lift others? What good is a title if it costs me my soul? No, I wasn't made to blend in with the palace. I was placed here to disrupt it. To awaken justice. To shine a light where shadows have ruled too long. And tomorrow, I will step into the shadows with that light. Some people think God only uses prophets. But he also uses orphans. He uses quiet women in loud kingdoms. He uses the broken to restore the broken. And that gives me hope. Because I don't feel like a warrior tonight. I feel small. But I've seen what God does with small things. He turned 5 loaves into a miracle. He turned a mustard seed into faith. So he can turn my yes into salvation. Even if it feels like a whisper in a storm. If tomorrow I perish, then I perish. But I won't perish without purpose. I will not go quietly into fear, I will go faithfully into obedience. Not because I trust the outcome, but because I trust the one who called me. And if he brought me this far, he won't abandon me now. He didn't carry me through exile to leave me in a throne room. He didn't whisper dreams into a little girl only to let them die in gold halls. I was born for more than survival. I was born for surrender. And tomorrow, I surrender it all. My name. My title. Even my life. If it means freedom for others. There's something holy about this night. Not because of the silence, but because of what it holds. It's like the breath before the breakthrough. The pause before the promise. And I choose to believe that God is still writing. That the story isn't finished. That the God of Israel still hears the cry of his people. Even in palaces. Even through women. And when I rise tomorrow, I will rise not in fear, but in faith. I will rise not alone, but carried by every prayer spoken on my behalf. The story is bigger than me. And I'm honored to be written into it. I trace the edge of my robe and think of the tzitzit my uncle wore. The fringe that reminded him of the commandments. And I wonder, what will people remember about me? Will they remember the crown or the courage? The banquet or the boldness? I hope they remember that I tried. That I stood. That I loved my people more than I loved my safety. That I risked everything for the God who gave me everything. Because that's all I have to offer. Not perfection. Just devotion. And tomorrow, I will give him all of it. One last prayer before I sleep, if sleep ever comes. God, I am yours. My fear is yours. My mission is yours. My voice is yours. I ask you to walk before me. To speak through me. To be my covering and my strength. Not for my glory, but for yours. So that they may know you are still the God who saves. Even in exile. Even through queens. Even in the quiet. Even now. And if someone finds this diary someday, let them know, it wasn't easy. But it was worth it. Not because of how the king responded. But because I responded to the King of Kings. I showed up. I spoke up. And God showed off. That's the kind of legacy I want. So if you're reading this, and you feel small, unseen, unworthy, remember Esther. Not because she was brave, but because she said yes. And maybe tonight, you can say yes too.
If this story moved you, consider sharing it with someone who needs to be reminded of their purpose. And if you'd like to hear more from the hidden hearts of Scripture, subscribe to our channel, Biblical Stories, where ancient truth meets tender storytelling.